Hello everyone, welcome back to the Missing Link online dating success vlog series. So last time we talked about dating expectations and the expectations that I attained in my online dating experience. I also went into depth on setting up your dating profile, the do's and don'ts of that, and the red flags that you should watch out for in other profiles. If you missed that video, I highly recommend watching it and catching up before moving on to this phase. So before we start, there was a book I read in early college years ago, right when I started online dating, and it's called Why Men Love Bitches. Okay, and so the acronym for bitch in the book was Babe in Total Control of Herself. I love it. I love it. I highly recommend reading this book, no matter at what phase you are. Whether you're single, in a relationship, married. You know, it's a great book for the ladies. It really changed my way of thinking and treating relationships in my own personal way. And it could be totally different for somebody else. But it built up my confidence, whether I was single or in a relationship. It helped me not be so afraid to tell it like it is. You know, just to be real no matter what the outcome was. I felt free to speak my mind, you know, when it meant sticking up for myself and standing up for my values and my beliefs. It really helped me gain a sense of self and a lot of self-worth. I didn't know what that truly meant until I read this book. It taught me to see my inner strength as a woman as well. You know, that I deserve to be treated with respect under any circumstance. And most importantly, it really laid down the fact that you should never seek a man out of need. That nobody should ever be at a point in their life where they need someone. It taught me to be happy with myself, that I was my own ally when things didn't go as planned in the dating world. And it helped me move on much smoother and faster instead of burying my feelings or burying myself in my feelings. So, bottom line, read this book. I promise you, it's the best $11, $12 I ever spent. And I will have the link for it in the description of this video, and I will also have it on my blog. You can buy it paperback or Kindle, cheap. It is such a good book, and it's one of those books that, like, when you need a pick-me-up, you can read it over again. You know, like you're going through a breakup and you're just feeling the lowest of the low. Because I've read the book more than probably 3 times. More than 3 times. It's just so good. It's so good. And I mean, it teaches you not just how to be a bitch, not literally a bitch, but a strong, independent, emotionally successful woman who is in total control of herself. This isn't meant to make you intimidating. This isn't meant to make you out to be a high maintenance bitch. Not that kind of bitch. This isn't out to make you look like you're high and mighty, okay? It's to gain a sense of who you are as a woman and the strength of what you deserve, instead of basically, as what it says on the front of the book, going from a doormat to dream girl. It's a really, really great book. So I wanted to point that out before we move on into messaging etiquette today. All right, so messaging is where it all begins. This is where you really start to get to know people, and people can get to know you better. Whether you've been dating online already or this is your first time and you haven't started yet, everybody's going to have a different experience as far as the messaging process, just because of people's personalities and the way people complement each other and compatibility reasons. Well, maybe if you've already been dating online, you kind of have already experienced some of the downfalls of messaging and online dating. I know I did. And I developed a lot of deal breakers as far as the kinds of messages that I received from people. It got to an extreme to where I didn't respond to people. I didn't even open up certain messages just because of what was in the subject line. Yeah, that's harsh, but I knew I wasn't dating online for games, sex, being played, and just complete bullshit nonsense from people. I mean, I wasn't going to take it. If I already wasn't getting what I wanted from someone just from the initial message, what was my reasoning for having to respond? It's just wasting everybody's time. As far as deal breakers, you're going to have your own, and that's fine. You should have deal breakers as far as what you expect people to say online, okay? You know, people are going to overstep their boundaries. Some people don't have a filter. Some people are looking for something completely opposite of you, and yeah, what they say may offend you, but it's how you take it. I mean, you just don't respond. So for me, my deal breakers were fairly common among others, I think, you know, pretty universal. And then there were some deal breakers for me personally that I couldn't tolerate. Poor grammar and spelling, you know, was just a little bit of OCD for me. You know, I understand if it's somebody who doesn't get the English language very well, you know, somebody who's foreign and English is their second language, like, it's a little different. But when somebody types out something like this, come on. Come on. So that stuff. No, pass. You know, I have probably said this before, but, you know, dating online for 4 years, it's like you start to realize over time you get bored of certain things. You just get tired of seeing the same old thing. So, you know, at first it was really nice when I had guys message me and say, hey, beautiful, or hey, sexy. It was nice. I'm not going to lie. It was nice. But after about, you know, a year or two in, and after maybe one failing long-term relationship, getting those messages just doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't. The hey, sexy, the your eyes are so beautiful, I would love to stare into those eyes all night. Okay, I'm coming from, you know, kind of old school online dating, you know, 5+ years ago, where people said those kind of things. I'm sure people say much more raunchier things now. So, yeah, I'd probably lose my nerve if I was online dating right now. It's probably a good thing. Good thing I'm not. But, you know, I just got sick and tired of, especially initial messages, always being directed towards my physical appearance. It just got old. It's like, it's the first thing you can jump to when you have nothing to say. I classified it as laziness. Yeah, if you're really good with your words, and in messaging here and there, you can like slip that you like my hair, or, you know, you think it's sexy that I'm tall. I don't, you know, you can get it in there, great. But like, if that's your go-to, get the hell out. Like, come on. The next thing that kind of got jumped to, if I wasn't getting something related to my looks, I was getting the messages that were literally like 1,000 words long. There were 20 questions. Hey, how are you? I'd love to get to know you. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? What's your Friday night routine like? Do you like dogs? Have you ever been skydiving? What's the one place in the world you would love to go? How many times a day do you poop? Do you wipe from the front or the back? How many kids do you want? Do you want any kids? Is cheating a deal breaker for you? I'm addicted to coffee. Do you want to go get coffee tomorrow? All in one message. By the time I'm done reading it, I'm exhausted and I don't even want to answer. Because I know that I'm going to have to answer like 20 questions and then probably ask the same back. So those were a lot of initial messages that I got. Sometimes I got them in between, you know, saying, hey, how are you? What's up? How you doing? How's your week? And then I'll get those 20 questions. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? Speed dating? This ain't speed dating. If I wanted to do that, I would just go to the little coffee shop down the street that hosts it like every 2 weeks. But I'm here, like taking my time. Oh, it threw me off. And I know that makes me sound like I'm super picky and annoying and way over analyzing the fact that it could just be somebody who's truly interested in knowing the answer to those questions, but gotta know them all right now? Like, what's the reason for even going on a date? Right? So then there's that. And then there's the lack thereof a question. And you're gonna get plenty of those people. It's kind of funny for a while to put a bet on how long it takes for this person to ask you a question or to reciprocate your question with a question. And there's just way too many people out there who have no idea how to carry on a conversation. It's insane. If it's been 2 messages that I've written and then you haven't responded with a question, out. I was in my mid-20s at that point. I was done. I was done with that. You know, that stuff I dealt with when I was 18, 19. If you don't know how to socially communicate by now, there's a problem. Another thing I loved is those people who think that I asked them a question and they just go right into answering something. Almost like as if they meant to answer somebody else's question. But no, it was really to me. It's like this. Say somebody writes you an initial message and they think you asked them what your favorite hobbies are. So somebody initially writes you and just flat out goes into, I like to play tennis, I like to swim, I travel a lot, and I'm a really good cook. So if you would like me to cook for you sometime, I'd be interested. If you can get away with that, props. But for someone like me, it spoke arrogance. And here I'm one to talk because a lot of the things I say, I'm sure, make me sound very arrogant. But I think it's more along the lines of, I'm not trying to trick someone into talking to me. And that's the way that I took it. And it was just a major red flag for me. Along in those lines, there were a lot of people in the initial message that would try and set a date. Well, let's meet up for coffee. Want to go get a drink later tonight? Nah. I avoided those. I just get a very bad feeling from messages like that. And people like that means that they're quick to judge. They will take up just about anything and anyone, which is scary either way. So it is more than okay to go into online dating with deal breakers as far as messages you receive from people. Because if you don't, it means, yes, you're going in with your heart on your sleeve, but you're also going in with your guard down. And not that having your guard down is a bad thing necessarily, but when you don't listen to what your gut or instinct is telling you initially, you could be heading down a vicious path with someone. So it's important to listen to yourself when you think, this guy doesn't sound very sincere. Because you're probably right. You know, same for guys too. When you're talking to women, women being the more emotional beings that we are, we tend to feed off of a lot of emotion. So it is true when women think more emotionally than logically. Maybe not all the time, but most of the time. And that's how we do initially. So when you're talking to a woman, if it seems like she's fishing for compliments or fishing for reassurance of love, that's a red flag in itself. If you get the feeling like a woman is just trying to buy your attention with words, you're probably right. And you should avoid that. And that should be a deal breaker. I did a lot of research. I went on a lot of forums and asked a lot of questions, and I got a ton of feedback from people on common messaging red flags and deal breakers for other people. A lot of them were the same, so I collected a lot of the answers that were similar, and I also added in a bunch that I would never have thought of, honestly. And I'm kind of surprised that people experience this kind of stuff in messaging online. So I listed those. There is a total I have of 22 common messaging red flags. I'm going to read these to you. I'm not going to go into depth because these should be pretty self-explanatory, but they're interesting. And they're good to keep in mind, because if you feel that any of these could be deal breakers for you, or if any of these seem to be common in your messages, it might be time to reevaluate who you're talking to. Alright, so the first common red flag of messaging is poor grammar and spelling. This was the #1 red flag that I saw in my research. Almost everybody had something to say about spelling or grammar as a whole. The copy and paste method. So at first I didn't really understand what this was until somebody used an example, and it was a really good example. Basically, if you get a message that feels almost too perfectly worded, it's more than likely somebody who wrote that out and has copied and pasted it to multiple people at once. If the message is very vague and generalized and doesn't specify to your profile specifically, it's more likely somebody copied and pasted a detailed message and sent it to a bunch of people at once. Reference to putting his or her partner on a pedestal. So if you're talking to someone and they happen to say, "I treat my lady like a queen," basically what they're trying to imply is that they feel they are better than anyone else. And there's nothing wrong with somebody who wants to treat their lady like a queen. There's a difference between saying it and just actually doing it. Why do you need to say it? Just do it. If you're a gentleman and you treat your lady like a queen, you don't need to tell me that. Just do it. Being called pet names. So pet names like, baby, my girl, beautiful. I mean, they could be sexual innuendos, sexy. Or, if your name's like Jessica and somebody references you as Jess, it's like, you don't know me that well. You can't call me Jess. Some people don't like being referred to their nickname from someone they hardly know. One-word messages or smiley. This is actually a big red flag. Not only does it convey that someone may not be as genuine as you think, it also implies that they're not very good socially. They probably do not know how to keep carrying on a conversation. They probably lack social skills in relationships, period. So I would avoid those who tend to write one-word answers or one-word initial message. You have a job, or you work all day, you don't have time to write back the people who message you on the dating site, but you're going to get those people that have a hard time not getting a response right away. Bottom line, it's unhealthy behavior and it doesn't give off any positive vibes towards a decent and long-lasting relationship. Reference to money or salary. So anybody that talks about how much money they make or their salary in their job, it's just disrespectful and it's gloating. Nobody needs to share that right away. It's something that you talk about when you've gotten together and you've gone on a few dates and you talk about your jobs. Not something you talk about on messaging. Lack of understanding, or no means no. So if there's something that you don't want to talk about and you tell that person, no, I'm not really comfortable talking about that, and it's a major red flag that they have no empathy or understanding to your feelings and lack of respect for you. Speaks negatively about their sexual preference. So, ladies, if you're talking to a guy and this guy happens to tell you, "I can't stand that I continuously run into all of these feminist women with a stick up their ass. It's super annoying. I'm just looking for someone who's real." Okay, they're speaking negatively about women in general. It doesn't matter, feminist or not. Clearly this guy has no filter as to what he says to women as a whole, and it speaks volume about himself and the way that he handles himself around other people. The "I'm only attracted to ... phrase, okay? This has to do more so, I think, with physical appearance, but it can have to do with personality traits too, I guess, or other personal preference as far as dating. But let's say, ladies, you're talking to a guy, and let's say this guy obviously knows that you are on the curvier side, okay, like myself, and you're talking to this guy. He's able to see your pictures. You know, you posted some good variety of pictures, but let's just say you're talking to him, everything's going well, and all of a sudden he says, I'm only attracted to skinny girls. I guarantee you, you would just look at that message wide-eyed, like, do you not notice my pictures? I have hips, I have a big butt, you know, my waistline is not the size of a rail. Why are you talking to me? This is a red flag to avoid, because clearly this guy may have ulterior motives, or he is just looking for a very quick short-term satisfaction, or he's probably having a very hard time finding women to begin with. So this is a major red flag. You clearly don't match the description as to what he's attracted to. So if he tells you he's attracted to blondes and you're brunette, big red flag. Immaturity in terms of word use. Phrases like hanging with the boys, getting drunk and partying it up. So it really just depends on your personal preference as far as the level of maturity you're looking for in a relationship. It's not to say, in a sense, those phrases are wrong. It just might be a sign for immature behavior. And then let's talk about something else that a lot of people had mentioned being seen on people's profiles. And now that I think about it, I do remember seeing a lot of reference to things like this on people's profiles. And I just want to touch base on that. If you're talking to someone and it deliberately says on their profile, I don't date fatties, take one good hard look at that person. And if that doesn't speak volumes about how that person treats others, then there might be a bigger problem, because all I know is if I saw anything like that written on somebody's profile, or if somebody even said something like that to me, they were gone faster than I could blink, because that's just the lowest of the low. And maybe it's not in reference to I don't date fatties, but anything along those immature, lowballing lines. It doesn't matter if it was a personal physical preference or not, how it was said. There's a way to say it. And if somebody doesn't have the maturity and decency of being respectful to others, they are the true representation of an asshole and a major red flag. I personally hate this phrase. I didn't mind it back when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, because I really didn't take a sense as to what it meant. But now, of course, that I have grown to be a little bit more feminist in a way, I guess you could say, not die hard, but it just feels like when men use the phrase my woman, it's hard not to feel like it's used in a way of manipulation and control. But I was very surprised that this was one of the things that I stumbled across as far as a common red flag. And I wasn't the only one to verbalize it as a way of control. I think there's a way of how you say it and in what instances you say it, but as far as the phrase in general used in online dating and in messages, it can come across as a red flag. I think we can all agree upon too much self-confidence being a red flag. You know, somebody who gives off signs of being too arrogant, and then even the opposite, where somebody really shows signs of lack thereof any confidence. Either way. And it's important to find that balance in someone where they're not too cocky, but they're also not fishing for attention either. And just because somebody is fishing for attention doesn't mean they have self-esteem issues. Excessive dominance. So, if we're not really sure what the word dominant means, there's a good way to interpret dominance in the online dating world. So, if you're talking to someone and this person tends to take over the conversation, and you'll know how this feels because you won't be able to get much of a word in, or the conversation is always directed towards that person. But more so, it's noticeable over the phone or in person. It's kind of hard to tell over messaging, but a big sign of dominance, I feel, is somebody who takes control of what the conversation is about. And that's a major red flag as to how this person treats a relationship. The it's all about me approach. So same with the excessive dominance. If the conversation tends to be one-sided, not only is this a sign of immaturity, but it could also be the sign of someone with ulterior motives. Because if somebody really has no interest in getting to know you other than talking about themselves, they may not really be looking to get to know someone for honest reasons. First date on the first message. I can't tell you how many times I got these. You know, I tried not to look into it. I just knew for myself that I was not going to be pressured into a date. And that's the way every single one of those messages felt like, was that I was pressured to physically meet these people in person. I wanted the meeting to be on my terms as a woman. I wanted someone to make me feel comfortable getting together with them for the first time. Asking me out on the first initial message was not the way to do it. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that thought of this as a red flag, but I was kind of hoping it was going to be more at the top. Either today people are more open on going on a first date when asked by somebody in an initial message, or it doesn't happen as often. I'm really confused. Either way, it's a personal preference, but for me, it just spells out that somebody is very desperate and overly eager to giving their time to someone that may not even be compatible. Ghosting. This was a big one because so many people talk about it. I'm really just surprised nobody has written a book yet on ghosting. But as far as it being a red flag, obviously, yes, it is. But in terms of messaging in online dating, there's only one reason for anybody to ghost. And people have the hardest time either accepting the reason or understanding it. And I am mind boggled by this. So here's what I'm going to say. Take it or leave it. This is clearly what ghosting means. They are not interested, or they are distracted by someone else more interesting. Okay? If somebody is truly just busy, they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you up front. And honestly, if they're busy, they shouldn't even be active online. So I think people have the hardest time accepting what ghosting actually means. So just know right there, if someone is not interested in giving you their time, it means they are not interested in making you a part of it. Pickup line. I didn't know people still use pickup lines today, but I guess they are considered red flags. So funny guys, beware. I know pickup lines were fairly big when I started online dating, more so jokes. They weren't really pickup lines. They were more so jokes. And in the normal dating world, I would assume people still use corny pickup lines. So I'm not really sure why this is a red flag. Like I said, I guess it just depends. But I guess beware. Lists financial assets and asks about yours. So I didn't really have a problem with this one, but I guess it is. So if somebody just starts telling you about how many cars they own, how much money they make, how big of a house they have, you know, assets that describe the fact that they're probably wealthy, or they're asking about your financial assets, that's a no-no. I think that's on the lines of pressure and personal information that goes beyond certain comfort levels. It's rude, disrespectful. You know, I think if anybody's going to judge based on how much money you make or the size house you live in, that says a lot about that person and that they're probably very arrogant. So that's something to watch out for. High ratio of TMI. All right, so I had to kind of group some of these red flags, and I'm grouping them into the TMI folder. So stuff like dick pics, okay? A lot of people complain about dick pics. I know back when I started dating online, you couldn't send pictures to people. You could, I guess, but admins on the dating sites were very strict. So if anything was showing too much revealance, then you got blocked on that dating site or deactivated. So I'm assuming that that's not how dating sites are today, which is terrible because I'm sure there's pedophiles and rapists on dating sites, which is really scary. You know, the dick pic thing. Like, if a guy's gonna send you a dick pic initially, why would you talk to them? Just ignore them. And if you've been talking to someone and they randomly send you a dick pic, why even question it? Block them, ignore them, and just brush them off your shoulder. There are going to be those types of people out there. And same for guys. I'm sure there are those women who, yes, are fishing for attention. Guys are fishing for sex. Girls are fishing for attention and possibly sex out of it. But if somebody's going to send you willingly a naked picture of themselves without you asking, that obviously says something. They're going to do this to somebody else if they haven't already. They're not worth it if they can't respect you. It means they require a lot of self-validation. You shouldn't need that if you're truly looking for a decent relationship. And there's so many more red flags. I mean, there's cursing, evasive behavior, people who remain almost too secretive about their lives, someone who makes every message into a sext message, and people who tend to need their ego stroked all the time. Those are common red flags too. Does it necessarily make them a bad person? Well, some of them. But in general, they just don't speak highly of good behavior for a lasting relationship. So I know it's hard, you know, you're talking to someone and you just don't really know what to say. You know, like sometimes you're at a loss for words. You meet someone really great, or it's that person that you've been kind of crushing on and hoping that they reach out to message you, or maybe you're just getting up the courage to message someone yourself. Sometimes we just have writer's block. We don't really know what to say, or we don't want to say something stupid. I get it. I'll do an exercise with you on how to turn okay messages into good messages into better messages. Doing this exercise is really going to help you boost your questions about others. So I highly recommend taking this into account. Let's get started. So, you like the outdoors. Is this considered okay? It is a question, so that's a plus. But sometimes it's just not enough. You know, there's not a lot of enthusiasm to that question. So, to turn it into good, you would say something like this. I see you like the outdoors. Me too. What do you like about hiking? So maybe you grabbed hiking from that person's profile. It shows that you actually read it and you're trying to spark a conversation in relation to one of their hobbies. It doesn't always have to be about you. But there's also a way to make it better. It's nice to see someone who enjoys the outdoors as much as I do. Where else have you hiked other than blank? Which you would gather from their profile. But you have to have that information, obviously. So from there, you understand going from okay to good to better. Here's another question. Cute dog. I have a dog too. That's okay. First off, there's no question. There's nothing really that can be reciprocated from that message. So here's how we can make it good. I'm guessing you love dogs. We now have one thing in common. What's his or her name? All right? So you're kind of making a joke, but you're also asking a question. And maybe also a question that not normally a lot of people would ask. It makes it interesting. How could we make that question better? Is it you or your dog that's on the dating site? Just kidding. I have a bulldog and he saw the picture of your puppy and was very interested. Is that a Yorkie mix you have? You're making a joke while also being enthusiastic and as well as asking a question. The important rule of thumb is to not be overly enthusiastic. I think people tend to get carried away. And am I saying that you have to be a smooth player when you sit here and think of a question to ask somebody? No. Think of it in terms of what would you want someone to say to you or ask you. Now, if you're one that's like, I'm okay with just, hey, how are you? Okay. Go ahead. See if it works. If it works for you, great. Now, if you're the type that's like, I've just been saying, hey, and granted, like, I may not get a message back, I might be answering your question. So here's another one. For those who aren't very creative or witty or just aren't good with words, period. Hello, how are you doing today? That's okay. Here's how we can make it good. Hello, I hope your week is going well. It's almost TGIF. Now, granted, there's no question there, but sometimes it works in situations to write someone without the expectation of getting a response. That's the only time not asking a question works, is when you exude that little bit of confidence where it doesn't really matter if you get a response back, that you're hoping that person has a good week because you're interested in them. So sometimes it pays off and it's worth a try. But we can also make that statement better. Hey there, your profile caught my attention. I hope you're having a great week so far. What are your plans this weekend? Now, as I had said, the whole asking out on a date in the initial message thing is kind of a red flag, but you're not doing that. You are simply asking if this person has any plans and what those plans are this weekend. It shows you're interested in their daily life. I liked that. I liked when people asked me stuff in relation to my normal daily life, other than the normal getting to know you BS. So those are just a few different ways to try switching up how you interact with people on an initial message, on the first message. So those are some good things to say when you message someone and how to make it better. But here are some things you should avoid saying, and probably the people you should avoid responding to. People who write me back in their message. It's a sign for attention and being desperate. I'll be waiting for your reply. That's creepy. That's creepy both ways. In case you didn't get my last message, so this means somebody has already written you before and maybe you hadn't answered, or maybe you were talking to before and you had just stopped responding for a few hours, okay? And then somebody wrote you again a second time, in case you didn't get my last message. Sign of being desperate, again. And if you have to say that, you're being a little bombarding. Hope to hear from you. I'm on the fence about this one. And because I'm on the fence, I say do without it. Because you don't want to give somebody too much of the satisfaction of holding out for their response. Okay? I think if they've already written you, you have more of a chance that they will again. But in an initial message, I hope I didn't scare you off. Don't ever say that. And if somebody says that to you, well, then it would have to do with what their initial message started with anyway. If they're gonna assume maybe that what they say scares you off, it's probably because they meant it to. Let's meet up. Again, asking out on an initial message, don't do it. Just don't. If you're really going to be that impatient to not give it a little bit of time so that somebody can build a sense of identity in you and build a little bit of trust into who you are before they get together with you in person, you have a better chance of getting a date and not nagging them on meeting up. Now, granted, if it's been weeks and weeks and weeks and they put it off, yeah, drop them. Or if you've been waiting for somebody to ask you out, or they haven't, then they might just not be interested to the point in getting together with you. Want to get a drink? Here's what I have to say about the whole want to get a drink thing. Yeah, if you're looking to casually date, I think it's fine. But if you're looking for a relationship, I think the meeting up for drinks thing is a little overzealous. People get carried away, especially when alcohol is involved. People are nervous. People can get too drunk. And you put yourself in a situation where you might say things you didn't mean to, or do things you didn't mean to. And you don't want to sabotage something that could be a possible relationship. So it's safe to say, if somebody asks to meet up for drinks, just politely imply that you'd rather not get together for drinks yet, but maybe coffee or a very casual meal. I'm going to wrap up this video by talking about some of the most common scenarios that people tend to question and seek out answers for as far as messaging goes in the online dating world. I'm going to share my 2 cents with you. So these are real questions from people, and I think the reason that these are asked so often is mainly because people have a hard time accepting the answers. So first and foremost, that's kind of the most important thing to do when needing an answer to a question, is you have to expect the best and the worst. So question 1, should I respond to someone who I'm just clearly not interested in or would ever consider dating? I'm on the fence. And here's why. I know I said earlier that you shouldn't waste anybody's time. You should not feel required to answer everybody's message. But if you're talking to someone, okay, say you've been exchanging messages back and forth, and they just say something, or days pass and you just realize, like, there's just nothing there. You're not feeling it. You're not really excited to actually get together to meet this person. And it happens. It does happen more often than not. I think in that case, you do owe that person the respect. Just casually letting them know, hey, this has been great. It's been really great talking to you, but I'm just not feeling it. And I don't want to waste anybody's time. I think that's appropriate. But say you get a message from someone and you read it, you go and you look at their profile and you see something in there that's just
oh, hell no.
What would you respond with? Hey, I'm not interested because of blank. First, you're pointing out the flaw as to what it is you don't like about them. Nobody wants to hear that. But it's just wasting people's time. When you don't answer, you're not ghosting them. If you didn't answer the person that you've been talking to already, that's ghosting. Because that person probably gets a feeling that you're interested at some point and is interested in you. That's ghosting. It's not ghosting to not respond to somebody's first initial message they sent you. It should be a clear sign to people that you don't get a response, they're not interested. Is it still harsh? Yes, but what many don't understand is whether you're someone who is bombarded with a lot of messages, and more so I think this applies to women. A lot of times more women get bombarded with a lot more messages from people and a lot more of the same messages from the same people. And it's hard. It's emotionally draining, to continually have to tell people, oh, no. Even if it is just an attraction issue, it's exhausting. It's sad, but it's exhausting. And the reason for online dating is for the hope and the optimism of finding somebody that's compatible with you. And unfortunately, when you do it online, like, some are looking for a quick fix and some are desperate for just about anything. There's some who probably just go on there for the sake of seeing what's out there, even though they know they're not going to talk to anyone. You're going to get all walks of life online. It is what it is. You can't expect anybody to be the exact same. You can't expect somebody to treat you the same as you want to treat someone. Everyone's going to be completely different. And everyone has completely different feelings on the aspect of online dating. You have to go about your own way. You have to find your own way. Question 2. I've been talking to this really great girl. She messaged me first. And now, after a couple weeks, she has suddenly stopped messaging me as much. And there's really no spark in it when we do talk. What do I do? So I think it's safe to say that every individual needs to lay down some ground rules as far as messaging. Some people move way too fast and some people move way too slow. A couple weeks, I feel, is a good amount of time to be talking to someone. Notice I said a couple weeks, which means about 14 days, not 5. So 14 days, that's quite a long time to be consistently chatting with someone and getting to know them, consistently at least a couple times a day, or every other day, talking to them. There being an initiative on both sides, mutually. If it's consistently one-sided, that one person is initiating the conversation every day or at all, that's a red flag. Even if it starts off 2 days in, it's still a red flag. It's a red flag whether it starts 2 days in or 2 weeks in. It doesn't matter how many days you have under your belt talking to this person. If the conversation is suddenly not the same, it should be easy to justify that they may just be losing interest. I don't know if people think that there's a solution or that they need to fix it. Why would you want to fix somebody into liking you more who's already possibly not interested? I don't know about you, but I want somebody to like me consistently throughout and like me more, not showing less of an interest. So the easiest fix to this is to just stop responding. Notice that this person didn't say they stopped talking completely. They still talk, just not as much, and that this person feels there's no spark in the conversation. Okay? So really, there's a little bit of leading on going on here, and yeah, it's wasting one another's time. Because if this girl is not interested, why does she continue to talk to him? Could be for attention, could be for self-validation, could be that because she has really nobody else that she's talking to and she just isn't interested, but she wants to keep somebody on the back burner. Okay, let's be real, people do that. When you come into a dry spell of matches and you just want somebody to talk to as a friend and it not be romantic, sometimes people will really dig low into their expectations just to find somebody to talk to short term. It sucks, but it's true. When you start to have a little bit of doubt in your mind whether this person is possibly interested, it's probably because it's true. They probably did lose interest. It's safe to say this person needs to just politely tell this girl, it's been really great talking to you, but I just don't feel we're on the same page, or maybe that there's been a loss of interest in our conversations, so I'm gonna have to move on. Question 3. I met this guy a few weeks ago. We message each other a lot, especially at specific times of the day before he abruptly stops talking. We've talked about getting together, but he's always out of town on business. He told me that he doesn't have any social media, but I went digging and I found him on Facebook. He has a wife and a kid. I feel completely deceived, but I don't know what to do. I really, really like him. Is it bad if I keep talking to him? Or should I be the better person and tell his wife? I can't help it. I can't help the eye roll. I can't. So what really jabs me is that this person thinks that they're going to be a better person by confronting this guy's wife. All the while, she wants to continue talking to him. That makes you a better person? What? All jokes aside. First off, obviously this guy is not being faithful and not being loyal to his wife. Yet you're okay with that? Somehow? I'm not really sure where the idea leads that this person doesn't feel that this guy is not going to do the same to her as he's doing to his wife. And whether you want a serious relationship or not, someone who's already married, they're still likely to lie to you about everything. So So no, I don't think this person should go tell his wife. It's none of her business. And it is bad that you want to keep talking to him. Of course it is. It is bad that you want to even further sabotage this family. It is bad. And there's so many other people in the world. Why do you feel that you need to lower yourself to someone who is willing to keep someone on the side? I don't get it. It is what it is. You were talking to someone, and whether it was 2 days or 2 months, you've been talking to someone, and then you find out that they've been lying to you this whole time. They either have a girlfriend, or they have a wife, or they have a boyfriend, or they have a husband. It doesn't matter. Either way, whether it's 2 days of developed feeling or 2 months of developed feelings, it's still wrong. And you should have enough self-worth to let that go regardless, not only for yourself, but for the other person involved, the other significant other. Not the person you're talking to. Honestly, they can go fuck themselves. That's what I gotta say. A lot of self-worth comes into play in this question, because in the right mind, you should be telling yourself, I don't want to become that person's significant other in the boat they're in right now, because that's likely to happen. Question 4. I messaged someone, they wrote back, and we've been talking very casually. There seems to be an interest as far as getting to know one another, but it's been over a week now since I've heard back. I'm wondering what I should do or say, because this person is active online all the time, but just never writes me. Okay. This is the classic ghosting. It shouldn't be considered as serious as the word ghosting sounds, but it technically is. They've been talking to you, they've been sharing personal information, getting to know one another. Like that takes an effort. There's an exerted effort in getting to know people, even if it is just, what do you like to do on Friday nights? Even that kind of stuff. You're still making an emotional effort. So it does hurt. If this happens, there's really only one reason why it happens. And then, as I mentioned before, lack of interest. Again, lack of interest. That's all. It has nothing solely to do with them being out to hurt you purposely. It's more so that they don't want to go through the effort of turning you down or rejecting you. They're at a point, I think, where most people feel if I just dodge this bullet and not explain myself, then it'll hurt less. Not really. But we're talking comparable to a week to 6 months and being ghosted. 6 months is going to hurt way more than a week. It says a lot about that person if they ghost you after 6 months. I mean, let's be real. You've probably met each other. You've probably been intimate with each other. And to have somebody ghost you then is just downright dirty. But to be ghosted after a week of talking, it's just simply lack of interest. This doesn't mean that they're using you. This doesn't mean they have a cold heart. I mean, it could. But it happens more often in the online dating world than I think we expect. But we need to go in expecting that when people do this, okay, I wasn't interesting enough for him to continue talking to me. And the last question. I met this really nice girl. We chatted for a few days, met up for coffee, and I'm already starting to really fall for her. We decided to keep it neat and just continue to chat on the dating site. Ever since the date, it's like she has turned from this sweet, innocent person into a very needy, vulgar bitch. I don't know what went wrong. It's only been a little over a week that I've known her. Why would she do this? Could she have a past that I don't know about? What do I do? First off, absolutely. She could have a very long history of toxic relationships. I mean, for a person to go from being sweet and innocent to suddenly becoming a clingy, needy, vulgar person, I mean, it says a lot about them. They either have no control over their emotions or they're just not emotionally stable for a relationship right now. The real question is whether the person asking this question is ready for a relationship. because if you can't read into bad signals and red flags and take that as an initiative to end that relationship entirely, it means you are leaving yourself too vulnerable and you're desperately looking for a relationship, and you can't do that. You can't lower yourself just in order to have a relationship in your life. My initial reaction is like, well, do you want to stay with this person? And you can only hope they would say no. And that goes for anything. I mean, that goes for girls who date a guy and then the guy ditches you on a date. Do you want to date that kind of person? Your first reaction should be no. It should be hell no. And you should want to drop that guy. But does that happen every single time? No. A lot of people tend to justify people's actions as something to tolerate. Or give it another chance. Let's give it another chance. Maybe this is a phase. You know? But why do we do that? Why do we do that? And then we waste so much time thinking that somebody will change for us just to have it turn out to be a failing relationship. If we're not getting our expectations met from the beginning, we're never going to get further in our relationships. So what this person needs to do is be completely honest with how he feels. He needs to address the fact that I had a great first date with you. You were really sweet and nice, but now I'm starting to see a different side of you from before, and I just don't feel I'm deserving of that. And you move on before you sit here and give somebody the satisfaction of your time and your effort who's not going to make you happy in return. And that wraps up messaging etiquette. There's a lot that you're going to learn on your own, but the information that I gave you is just stepping stones to get you in the right direction. For the third phase, I'm actually going to spend that time answering any questions that I have received throughout the series. I'm going to touch base on certain scenarios that I encountered in online dating, some sticky situations I had. You know, I talked about how I had my ups and downs in online dating. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to go more into depth on my ups and my downs to help give you a little more hope in that you're not going to be the only one who feels at some point that online dating isn't successful, because there were many times that I wanted to give up as well. And I'm leaving the next phase open to answer any questions that you may have. And don't forget, buy that book that I talked about, Why Men Love Bitches. Promise you, so worth the $12. Just do it. So feel free to email me, comment on the blog post for this phase, or post a question on my YouTube video, and I'll be sure to feature it in the next phase and go over my answers with you. To find out when the next phase will be published, be the first to find out by signing up for the Missing Link newsletter. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day. Bye!